So the first recall I got of the situation was being woken up in hospital at 4 o'clock in the morning by my wife saying, "Do you know where you are? It's 4 o'clock in the morning. You've come off your bike and you're in Southampton Hospital." I'd fractured my neck in two places, 2 of the vertebrae had been fractured. I had a facial reconstruction that morning in surgery where I'd broken my nose in several places, and you still got the stitching to see, show where the scars were, and I had 2 bleeds on the brain, and so that was what was in there. And the biggest one that I started to subsequently discover, and I was being told, is I had no movement in my right arm and shoulder at all. So, and that was something I was later to learn, that they believed that I would be paralysed and I would never get used back in my right arm again. And then I was recommended to have spinal surgery some 4 months later to see whether that would actually do anything to resolve the nerve issues and the lack of movement. And I was told at the time they didn't know if it would make a difference, but there was no harm in trying. So I went back to hospital and I ended up in hospital another week waiting for surgery, for quite involved spinal surgery. 4 months afterwards, I still had no movement. I'd just taken the neck brace off around then, so for the first time I had some movement in my neck. And then the journey started. I started to see a chiropractor, I started to see massage therapists, and I started to see neurophysios, all off my own back. So my belief was, I'm worth investing in. If you look at any pothole, any situation in a road, especially when you're on a bike, if you go clattering through a pothole in a car, okay, you might damage your tyre. You go and hit a pothole that's anything deeper than about 5 centimetres deep on a bike, and the consequence of that, can be very, very severe. I initially started cycling probably about 8 years ago, something in that region. It was a personal thing where I was told I was not doing enough exercise. So I bought a bike, and that year I started cycling. The ambition was to do it properly, and the target was to cycle more miles in a year than I drove in my car. Yeah, when the incident happened, it was about 100 yards from my house. It was an evening. It was dark when I went out the bike. I was going to meet my daughter, who was finishing work. It was probably just before 11 o'clock at night, and I'd literally jumped on one of my town bikes, not the usual road bike that I own just for commuting into the city centre, which is about 1.5 kilometres away. So I've left my home down a driveway, cycled literally to the bottom of the driveway, over a main road just outside the city, down onto what is quite a small narrow road down. There's a gentle incline on it. I've gone down, and about halfway down this road, obviously I've struck this hole in the middle of it, which I was unaware of at the time. You imagine you get 2 pieces of tarmac either side of a narrow road. It's almost the join in the middle that had started to split, and there was a groove that was about 5 centimetres deep by about 25 centimetres long, at an angle of about 45 degrees. The wheel has gone into this groove and just caused the bike to veer off to the left, and then subsequently I hit a car upright, and from that, when I passed the car, I've landed full on my face on the road. If you see the road, you wouldn't have believed that much damage could be caused to a bike and then a human by something which seems so innocuous in the road. You wouldn't assume that can do as much damage as it actually did. Yet, 3 and a bit years later, that pothole is still there. Yeah, I think Cycling UK is doing a great job in raising awareness to the bodies that need to start to act. Whether it's government or whether it's local authorities, it's really important that they start to see what is required and what needs to be done to improve the welfare and the well-being of the people that are using those roads. I'd love to see more cycle lanes allocated at the side of roads. We see many countries. Mallorca is a classic, where you've got allocated lanes at the side of the vehicle lanes where cycles they can go down and be safe. The challenge over here is also an educational one on drivers. The highway code is quite clear of what it states of how close you should be to a cyclist, but drivers need to be more aware. Especially if you want to get younger families onto bikes, which a lot of us want to do because it's an easy way to get around and it's a lot cheaper and better for the environment.